Coaching Soccer Weekly, episode 381 How to Dribble Like Messi. Entertaining, educational, and inspiring soccer content to help make you a more effective coach, player, or soccer parent. Hello and welcome back to Coaching Soccer Weekly, presented by World Class Coaching. My name is Sega Verbinovich, and this is the podcast devoted to bringing you cutting-edge methods, techniques, and tactics for coaching soccer. It doesn't matter if you're an experienced coach who has been training teams for many years, or if you're new to coaching and working with a team for the very first time. There's something we can all do to take our coaching to the next level. Welcome back to the show. I'm really excited for today's show. I'm going to start by talking about the women in the World Cup, which I have to talk about. Then I'm going to talk about the main part of the show, which is how to dribble like Messi. And then there's something else that I wanted to talk about, and it has nothing to do with soccer. So I'm going to warn you now, and I'll tell you when. So if you want to turn it off after that, I understand. But it's something that's changed my life, and I want to share that with you because my goal with this podcast has always been to help people. So if this can help one or two people, and I'm sure this will actually help a lot more people, I think it could be really good. Anyway, let's start by talking about the World Cup. Now, I don't like to talk badly about really anything. I don't like to complain. That's not who I am. I always kind of like to, if I do have a complaint, I like to come in with the attitude, okay, how am I going to solve this problem? But this is a very different World Cup. This is a team that just won the Olympics, and everyone's trying to figure out what was going on, what happened with this team. And I think the pattern was clear from the beginning, and I've talked about it a little bit on last week's podcast. The first game didn't play well at all. Second game, first half, didn't play well. Second half, played really well. I came on the show and I said, Bev has a really big responsibility to pick the right players. And we're going to see how that is in the next game. In the next game, first half didn't play well. Second half, played better. The problem that I found and the consistent issues was that at the end of the half, there were substitutions. And whenever that happens in soccer, it means that something went horribly wrong. You do not sub every single game at the 45th minute. You just don't do that. That's not how you coach. You go in with a plan. And in my opinion, the problem was not with the players. The problem was not with the association, which is, by the way, a huge problem. The Canadian Soccer Association, for those that don't know, is in complete shambles. But that's not an excuse. These players are professionals. These are some of the best players in the world. When the whistle blows, they do their job. So that's not an excuse. However, if you are one of those players and you don't get to play 90 minutes, then there's not much you can do. If you're only playing for 45 minutes of that game, you can't really affect the game much. So it doesn't matter how good you are if you're not playing, and that's solely down to the coach. The first game, there was no plan on attack. What upset me is that the Canadian program, and specifically the women in that program, are some of the best defenders in the world, with Buchanan there, in my opinion, still is so underrated in the world. I remember there was, when I went to watch them, just the composure that she has as a defender is something that you don't see anymore. On top of that, Chapman, in my opinion, another incredible defender who didn't get much playing time. The defenders didn't really go in with a plan, and that's not their fault. It's the coach's job to come in with a plan, especially for a national team. The first game's like, to just cross the ball every time you get it is not a plan. That's throwing the ball in the air and hoping for something good. That's not what you do. Christine St. Clair is going to go down as one of the best players in history. She's going to go down as one of the players that single-handedly has turned Canada soccer in Canada. And when I met her, what I said to her was, thank you so much for having such a big impact on the game and changing and being an inspiration to so many people. And I firmly believe that. But the way she was used in this World Cup says so much about the coaching staff. It really does. You can't do that with Christine St. Clair, one of the best players. She still has quality, but at this level, using her for the first 45 minutes and then taking her off makes absolutely no sense. You want to put her in the 70th, 60th minute after the other team is tired. I understand that, but for the first 45 and this, the coach got it wrong. The coach sat players that shouldn't have been sat. It was just a terrible coaching performance. And in my opinion, is the sole reason we are not moving on. This is a team that has quality and has proven it. And since John Herdman has left the team to go to the men's program, the program has been on a rapid decline. And I think I've talked about that before. It's not okay. And until we get a new coach in there, it's only going to get worse for this team and this program. Now, I could talk about the Canadian national, the Canadian Association, and how bad they're treating their players. But I've done a podcast and I've talked about that before. It is an embarrassment. It's tough. It's tough when you're a part of an association like that you can't really do much, right? And the reason, and I've said this so many times, that I've opened the academy was that I wanted to affect change. And I can say that I have in Ontario. But the meetings, the things that are taking place in a national scale, I don't know what to do. And that's a tough pill to swallow, especially because this is what I want to do. I want to help the program. But when you see how they treat their players, when you see who they put in charge, it's not something that you can sit there and be proud of. Now, I've talked about the men's program. I've talked about the fact it's the same thing. It's just John Herdman. And it feels like, to me, it's John against the world. The players that he has, most of them are the stars don't play in Canada. They left Canada. It's a program where John has to go out and really scout players in other countries, and that's not a top tier program. That you can't do that. So big disappointment. And now I'm worried about the Olympics. I'm worried about the women's program. Will we even qualify? Jamaica just went through, and we're playing them. So we'll see what happens. I really, for me now, go Australia. Love to see the hosts win, make a really deep run, and then go US. Alex Morgan, probably her last World Cup. Maybe not, I don't know. But what an impact she's had. I would love to see her, get out, dominate, and do really well. But yeah, that's enough about the World Cup for now. Let's talk about everything else, which is how to dribble like Messi. And what's really been great about Messi coming to Inter is the access of highlights and just more coverage on him in the US and Canada. So I've been able to watch him a lot more. Now, I know he's not the same player that he was, but coming into the MLS, it seems like he is, you know. Now, what does that say about the MLS? The fact that two players can come into a team and completely transform it at the end of their careers, that's a different story and a different podcast. But watching Messi play has really shown the exact thing that dribblers have to do in order to be effective. And by being effective, I mean not losing the ball. Now, what he does is one simple concept. And if you understand the concept, then you can start to look deeper into how he makes that concept even more effective. And the concept is super simple. The concept is simply get in between the player and the ball. And that's it. If you look at Messi when he is dribbling, and he is the moment when he is beating a player, the ball is not out there for the player to get. The ball is in a place where Messi has control of it. And having control means being in between the player and the ball. So that's the basic concept of what Messi does. But Messi takes it a step further. And that's what makes him more effective than other players. What he does is he'll get the defender off balance first, and then he'll apply that principle of getting in between the ball and the player. So if you're a defender and you're off balance, you're easy to beat. But if you're not only off balance, but you're also far away from the ball, it's impossible now. And the only thing that you can do is reach a leg out or foul him, and he'll go down and he'll keep possession, or he'll just take it and keep going. And that's what we see a lot. So really, as those defenders come to him, all he really has to do is jump that hurdle. Now, what's interesting is that his pre-fakes are deceptive dribbling moves. And his move is essentially getting his body in between the player and the ball. So he'll do a sidestep, a shoulder fake, whatever it is, as a deceptive dribbling move to get that defender off balance. And then his actual move, what he uses to beat the player, is getting his body in between the player and the ball, right? So if we think about moves like scissors, fake shots, Maradonas, okay, all those moves are actually deceptive dribbling moves, but that's only part of it. That's only the first part. And using that as now the pre-fake to the actual move, which is getting your body in between the player and the ball, that's a whole different level, right? And when you incorporate that into your move, then that's a whole other element of a 1v1 move that you can explore as well. Now, teaching this is very simple in the 1v1 as a concept. In practice, it's very difficult to do. What we do is we start out with our rondos, then we'll go in and we'll go step by step to each move. But now what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that they understand that in order to beat the player, it's not enough to just tap the ball past them. No. What's the most important when you're beating the player is to actually have your body in between the player and the ball as you're beating them. And that has to be something that is worked on and talked about and hammered into the players through the 1v1s that you're doing. And this is really the concept that we're going to add within our 1v1s. And I urge you to think about it. And now that there's a lot more access to Messi, especially in North America, I know we have a lot of listeners from the US, Canada. I urge you to start to watch these highlights, because what's great is that the ESPN, TSN, Sportsnet, whatever you're watching, they're really good North Americans at creating highlights. And they're really good at getting that player, that famous player, and focusing on them, right? If I watch EPL, for example, with the highlights, you won't necessarily see the player. It's more of kind of team and ball movement now. But North America, because everything is very individualistic and Messi is such a big deal, games are going to be focused on him and what he does. And you can see this in other sports. You can see this in hockey. You can see this in basketball, right? LeBron James, right? There's basically a camera that follows LeBron the whole game at this point, right? So now what we're getting is we're really getting camera just on Messi and what he does. And people are so hyped and excited for him to be here that he is a lot more accessible to people like us in North America. So I urge you to start watching and seeing what he does now that he's at Inter. So I want to tell you a story. The rest of the podcast has nothing to do with soccer at all. It's just something that I think will help you in life. And yeah, you could take it, you could not take it, but I want to say that now. This has nothing to do with soccer. But if it helps one person, then, that I've done my job. So I'll tell you a story and we'll kind of go from there. My last trip was to England. I spoke about that when I went to Chelsea. Now, what I didn't speak about a lot was the actual trip to and from Chelsea. For the first time in my life, I flew premium economy and first class. And in those situations where I do something that I kind of go, oh my God, I can't believe I'm here. I really try and talk to people around me and figure out how they got here and how they get here consistently. And I'll give you another example of this. And I did an episode on this. This was a TFC game that I went, and I think it was Gate 5. And it was underground, and you watched the players get on the field, and there was a buffet there and everything. And I spoke to people, try to figure out how to get there again. And I did the same thing on the plane when I got to premium economy. And I was very fortunate that the person beside me, really nice guy, very successful, had his own software business. And he started talking to me about the world of points, which I didn't know a lot about. I had Shoppers Drug Mart points, which is a Canadian brand here. And it's essentially a drugstore. You go in and you have a points card. So you just, every time you buy something, you get points for it. And then those points add up. And then eventually you can use those points to buy free stuff. But what I didn't know was that you could do that for things like travel. And you can do that for a lot of different types of industries. So I sat there and I spoke to the guy for a very long time, because from here to England was a very long trip. And he started kind of giving me these little advices and little things that I should be looking for. And from there started my journey really to get points, to the point where now I'm able to very consistently, when I travel, not only get free hotels, but also get first class flights everywhere, and do things that I just thought I would never be able to do for free. When I go to the airport, I will get free airplane lounges, so I can go into the lounges every time I go, and it just makes everything so much easier. Now, I'm no expert, and like I said, I'm not going to sell you anything. But what I do want to do is I want to give you someone to follow on YouTube. And this channel has really changed my approach to everything. It's called Prince of Travel. He's fantastic. He really goes into detail about what you need to do in order to really get the most out of your points. Now, what's great about this is that this approach works in every country. So Canada, US, North America, also in Europe as well. So it's something interesting that has really changed my life. I'm going to be going away in a couple of weeks, and and my stay is just, like, I shouldn't be getting what I'm getting. And I'll probably do an episode on that as well. But some things for you to just kind of get started in as well is just understanding that world. I didn't really understand what American Express was, what the benefits of that was. Now I do. Marriott Bonvoy, Hilton, getting into those types of reward programs. So when you're going to visit places, you get free upgrades and things like that. It's a whole world of amazing things that not a lot of people know of, and not a lot of people know how to take advantage of it the right way. Credit cards. I always thought that you had to cancel a credit card if you were switching, and apparently that's not the right thing to do, right? So it's a whole world of things that, again, I'm not an expert, but it's something that I think everyone should look into and kind of find whatever works best for their family and themselves, especially with their budget. And at the end of the day, you get to travel and kind of see the world and do it very cheap. So nothing's better than that. But again, Prince of Travel, someone I follow. There's a lot of more amazing people. He's just a really, really great person that goes into detail and has a lot of videos for everything that you need to know. So hopefully that helps. And I really hope you look into it, because I promise you it will change your life. Thanks for listening to another episode of Coaching Soccer Weekly. I feel so bad for the women on this team that this was their last World Cup. This generation of players has done so much for the game and has really had a deep impact on the soccer culture in Canada. It is such a shame that the coach that came into this World Cup couldn't showcase the talent of the players that we had, and just played them at the wrong times and didn't really give them a chance to shine, because that's what your job is as a coach. It's to put players in situations where they can stand out and really be stars. So I feel like the players were robbed from that. What's amazing is that the women's game is still so young, and we're really starting to see smaller countries have a big impact. The gap that was Canada and the US and even England at a certain point, it's just not that big anymore. Countries are coming up, and it's really great to see this competition. And I think Canada soccer now has someone right on their heels. And from Jamaica to Nigeria to Australia to Spain, these are countries that are just coming up now to make a big voice for themselves. And I couldn't be prouder. It's my job now to continue to try to influence the game as much as I can and help these young girls really find an avenue to play at the highest level. And I really want that challenge. There's so much that you can do for the women's game as a coach, even just bringing in volunteer coaches that are young girls to get them involved in coaching, or bringing in women coaches. That's a big part. As Martha said, as long as these girls can see someone older than them that's in the game and is having an impact, I think that's fantastic. And that's a very good first step to take, just to have a big impact on the girls' game. And then eventually the women's game as well. Next week, I will be going away. I'll be away on Thursday. So I'll try and put out a podcast. Definitely do my best. But until then, enjoy the journey, enjoy the moment, but most importantly,
Hey, thanks for watching all the way to the end, and you can check out more of our videos right here. And if you haven't done so already, I would really appreciate it if you'd hit the like button and the subscribe button.